Back in 2020, I released my take on a what if title sequence for a Doctor Who spin-off featuring Paul McGann. Now, in 2024, despite continuing rumours and talk of all that Disney money, it hasn't happened. So I'm going to go ahead and take you through what I'd do if I had the job of making the poster art for McGann's return to Doctor Who. Hello everybody, it's been a while since I made a video. For those of you that don't know or probably just forgot, my name is David and I'm a digital artist. That's what I studied at uni, digital arts, and I specialise in motion design, key artwork, think poster design, cover artwork, those sorts of things. You can check out my portfolio in the description down below. I've been lucky enough to work with some great people, making title sequences for TV, cover artwork, working for Big Finish, and actually doing some stuff for Doctor Who, which has been a real treat. Anyway, enough of that. Let's jump into Photoshop and start cutting out Paul McGann's lovely face. Alright, so here we are in Photoshop. Now you'll see what I've done is I've laid out the images in kind of a rough position. That's where I want them to be come the end. That's what I want the composition to look like. So we have Paul McGann here, the 8th Doctor. I sourced this image from a website called the Black Archive. Very, very useful to anyone that creates Doctor Who content. You're definitely going to source stuff from this website because it's got a huge collection of actually quite rare images from the entire history of Doctor Who. Classic series, new series, and the new series, it's all there. So let me take you through what I've got in mind. So you'll see here we have the layers panel. This is where all of the images will be layered on top of one another, where I'll be compositing all the different effects, the lighting, painting in the lighting, where all of the composition will be assembled. I'll do most of my work in the layers panel. Like I explained at the beginning, this is artwork for a what if series featuring Paul McGann returning as a Doctor for a full series. It's been rumoured forever, but when I made that title sequence years ago, I imagined the kind of look of the show being this light to dark, hope to despair, because we have this hero, the Doctor, facing his greatest enemy, the Daleks. It was that damning oncoming storm of the Daleks, of the Time War, and that's what I want to convey in this poster. So what I've got laid out, we have the Doctor here looking very solemn. He's looking down. He doesn't look very hopeful. You can see I'm using two images. I want to overlay on top his two arms holding the sonic screwdriver. I think it would just look a bit cooler, but I'm going to have to make that look a bit better when it comes to cutting it out and compositing it. Then behind the Doctor we've got Gallifrey, his home planet, the planet under attack from the Daleks, and it's going to kind of act as a halo for his head, that central focal point. And then surrounding the Doctor to the left side of the image, which you can see, I want this kind of gradient from this dark to the light. On the dark side we have the Daleks, and I can't go any further without mentioning the amazing James Johnson, who has supplied these superb renders of his Dalek models, new series Daleks. Absolutely fantastic. So thank you, James. Please do give him a follow if this is your thing, if you love Doctor Who, if you love 3D modelling, even if you don't love Doctor Who. He's extremely talented. So yeah, so far that's what I've got in mind for the composition. I don't want to overfill it. I don't want to just chuck loads at it. I want to keep it relatively simple. Have the hero, have the villain, have the setting, contextualise the whole thing. And if you have seen the Paul McGann title sequence, and if you haven't, do check it out. I'll put a little link up there somewhere. You'll notice those two suns. Now at the very start of the title sequence, you'll see Gallifrey's two suns setting and casting the planet in darkness, and that's what I want to kind of convey in this. I'm trying to pull together concepts from that title sequence in this, so they kind of are within the same kind of look and feel. That's the rough placement of the images, that's the rough positioning. So let's get on with masking. Okay, so I've cut out Paul McGann, as you can see. I did use the pen tool for this, which is this tool up here. Maybe some people would think of that as the old-fashioned way these days, because you have subject select, object select, which can give some really good selections just with one click, but I do like to cut out with as much control as possible, just so you get really nice masking. Otherwise, you know, using just the machine to do all the object selection for you, it can sometimes look a bit messy, and because you trust it so much, you just don't see it. I've done it before and you miss important areas of masking, so I just do it manually. You can see now that I'm in select and mask, the window that pops up once you've made your selection. You can see refine hair. Now I didn't actually use that for this. I went ahead and just used the refine brush to paint around it, because again it just gives you that little bit more control. Okay, so now we're going to move on to lighting, which is my favourite part, and dare I say the most important, because if your lighting's not looking good, if it's not looking realistic, the whole thing can just look a bit flat. So I spend a lot of time doing this, so I'm going to take you through just one little element of it and then I'm going to just whiz through the rest. But what we're going to do is, as you can see on the right side of the canvas, we have this kind of angelic glow which is casting its light onto Gallifrey. I also want to make sure it casts its light onto the Doctor. But on the opposite side we have this darkness. So what I do for this is, you want to start off with a solid colour layer. Then you want to make sure it's clipping only to the layer below it, which is a clipping mask. Then what I'll do is I'll pick that colour. So we can see there Paul McGann is completely covered in this solid block of beige. What we're going to do is we're going to go onto the mask area of the layer and we're going to press Command I, which inverts it. So now when you paint in, you're just returning that colour where you want it. And likewise, if you reverse the colour, if you take it to black, you're just going to get rid of it. So let's think about this. The light's coming from here, so it's going to be casting that side of his body in the light. So here we go, let's get some light on that nose, get some light on that hooter. You can see here just painting in the light. Now I'm not actually using a stylus, I'm not using a Wacom, I'm just using my Apple Magic Mouse. It's extremely magic, let me tell you. My god. If you do have a Wacom, you're better off using that, I think, just for more refined control. But for now, this is just what I'm used to. Just painting in the light, painting in that light. When I name my layers, which you should do, keep nice and organised. When I name them, I call this specific lighting rim lighting or edge lighting, because it's just hitting the very edge of an object or a subject. And you can see that there. And what I'll do is I'll change the blending mode to add, overlay, whatever looks best. Sometimes add casts it and it just doesn't look right. I also have a thing that I like to call a wash light, which is less harsh, it's more of a surface area kind of light. I'm not very technical, I just make up my own silly terms. I'm sure there's a proper term for this. What I'll do now is just duplicate that layer, get rid of the masking window, and return it back to normal, just so I can see what's going on. Now I go into blending options, underlying layer, and you just drag this, press Alt and click, and it takes away the colour from the darkest areas of the image below it. These areas of the image, this kind of shadow underneath his lapel and his jacket, you can see how it's being taken away from there first, because the darkest areas of the image are being left unaffected by the layer that's clipping onto it. And eventually you're left with this kind of sheen, which is only affecting the lighter parts of the image. Get that layer mask back, Command I, invert it, and then again you can paint in those areas of light, and you can turn down the flow as well and the opacity if you want to get some, you know, more delicate control over it. This area of Paul McGann's lovely face cast in this angelic light, and we're going to change the mode to overlay. Ignore the hair, I know it looks rough, but I will make sure that looks a lot better by the time this is finished. Like I say, this is very rough, but it gives you an idea of what I'm going to actually be doing properly once I stop recording this. And so now what we're going to do is we've cast that side of the Doctor in the light, we want the other side to be cast in shadow. So what I tend to go for is exposure. And again, make sure that's clipping to the layer below it, then just gradually take it down. Now you can see it looks like the Doctor's being cast in shadow. We have this annoying area of light there on the Doctor's jacket, which really isn't particularly accurate to the light direction in the poster, so I'm going to have to work some more on that and probably paint it out. But for now you get the gist. Again, invert that mask and paint in those dark areas. Let's get the opacity back and the flow back, and we can just paint it in. Of course you can see here I'm painting over his shoulder. You have the Dalek's glowy light hovery thing behind it, which will cast light onto his shoulder, but for now let's just cover it in darkness. So there we are, you can see roughly what I'm after. This does look pretty rough, but if we go back we can now refine it some more. If you change the brush colour to black, you're erasing what you've just painted in. you know, just make sure you're imagining where the light's hitting. If it's hitting his neck, it's probably going to cast around a bit more onto the side because it will just shine upwards. So you can see what I'm going for. I mean, it's very rough so far, but things will change. I can promise you that. I've only spent like 5 minutes on it. Usually I spend a good few hours, so that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, quick pause in the middle of this time lapse. You'll see the compositions change quite a lot. Position of the Daleks, the Gallifrey, the colours, and this use of these paint textures, and yeah, it's changed quite a fair bit. You might be thinking, why did I change from how it was looking at the start? Well, I think the position of the Daleks at the beginning looked a bit awkward. The angle didn't quite look right. The composition seemed a bit unbalanced. So I just ended up rearranging the Daleks to kind of cascade down to this main central chap looking right at us, and Gallifrey is going to be shrouded in half of the light there and half of the darkness. There's a lot left to do, but I thought I'd give you an update. Let's crack on. Okay, so we're at the end of the process now, and you can probably tell now that I'm wearing a different t-shirt. I think a whole week has passed. Not that it's taken me a week straight to make this artwork, but I've been hopping on and off. Like anything creative, you're going to run out of inspiration. So you just got to give yourself time, go away. And that's why I came back to it and rearranged everything. And it ended up as this finished product. It's important not to rush. If you've got time to make this, if it's something like this, it's a personal thing, personal project I've done in my own time, don't rush it. You come back to it with a fresh perspective, which is the best thing. One day it could look terrible, the next day you think, actually this is quite good, I can work with it. Or alternatively, you might go to bed one day just finishing this and thinking, oh, that looks really good, come back the next day. No, it doesn't. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this was useful at least. Let me know. What would you like to see? Something similar to this again, or something slightly different? I've got lots of ideas about what to do next, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio.